Trains are amazing. They're huge, they're heavy, and there's still something romantic about them.
I totally agree. There was a time when train tracks were just starting to interconnect this country and made us mobile like never before.
Is that why we're walking along the railroad tracks here just south of Cavendish, Vermont, Jeff? We're looking for a train?
We're exploring a really strange story this week, Ray. Not so much about a train, but about the people who built the tracks.
Oh, I love it. Those unsung working class heroes.
Absolutely. Now, this case is so strange that I guarantee you've heard of it, even if you don't recognize the name. And there's even a monument in town that stands as a testament to this person who was considered a medical miracle. We're in Cavendish, Vermont, exploring the Phineas Gage incident. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 272 of the New England Legends podcast.
And I'm Ray Auger. Thanks for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England one story at a time. We're glad you're with us. Did you know that many of our story leads come from you? This one did. Thanks to our photographer buddy, Frank Grace, for telling us about it. Frank, of course, produces the Haunted New England calendar with Jeff. I've got mine.
You do. Now, before we explore the Phineas Gage incident, we want to take just a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Nuati Herbals.
Jeff, sometimes I feel like I'm juggling 100 projects at once.
I totally get it, Ray. You've got your daily radio show, your band, this podcast, your local band podcast, family, and everything else that life throws at you.
It's so true, which is why I'm sipping the Storyteller tea from Nuati Herbals.
I'm right there with you, Ray. We're all storytellers, whether we're performing on stage, hosting a podcast, or just getting through our regular work day. To tell the best stories, we need our memory and focus. The Storyteller tea from Nuati Herbals is perfect for that.
The Storyteller tea combines all natural ingredients like green tea leaf, hawthorn flowers, oat straw leaf, sage leaf, periwinkle flowers, lemon balm leaf, and other ingredients that, frankly, we can't pronounce.
That's true.
It keeps your head focused and on task.
You wouldn't want any accidents like poor Phineas Gage.
No.
So let Nuati Herbals help support your healthy lifestyle. Check out the Nuati Herbals website to see all of their great products, and you get 20% off your order when you use the promo code LEGENDS20 at checkout. Visit NuatiHerbals.com. That's Nuwati Herbals with an S.com.
That's a pretty spot here along the train tracks just south of Cavendish, Vermont.
It is. And our destination is just up ahead there where the tracks go through that rocky hill right over there.
Okay, I have to admit, I've never heard of Phineas Gage or his incident here in Cavendish.
I get it. I didn't know his name either, but take a look at this picture.
Okay. Ooh, I see a good-looking man wearing a suit. His left eye is sewn shut, and he's holding a large iron bar. Oh, wait a minute. I do know this. This is the guy who survived getting impaled on an iron bar.
That's him. He's a medical miracle, a sideshow attraction, and now a monument in the center of Cavendish, Vermont. To find out what happened, let's head back to 1848 and meet the man.
It's September of 1848, and America is growing fast on the back of the railroad. Tracks are being laid across the country, making us interconnected like never before. Goods and people can travel hundreds of miles in a day. It's an incredible time.
And there's plenty of work available for able-bodied men, too. There's tracks that need to be laid in every state and territory, through mountains and valleys, connecting cities and towns.
Here in Cavendish, there's a crew working hard laying tracks down just south of town for the Rutland and Burlington Railroad. Phineas Gage is a foreman.
Phineas Gage is 25 years old. He was born and raised in Grafton County, New Hampshire. He's bright, strong, innovative. He's the foreman in charge of the blasting for this project. He's been around explosives for most of his adult life. He even had a custom tamping iron made to use in setting explosive charges in the rock.
It's Wednesday, September 13th, about 4:30 in the afternoon, and Gage is setting an explosive charge into some rocks.
A hole was just bored into the rock, so now Gage is filling the hole with black powder. Okay, now he's using his tamping iron, which is about 3.5 feet long, 1.25 inches in diameter, and weighs just over 13 pounds. And now he's tamping down the powder to pack it in tight.
Mr. Gage? Mr. Gage?
Oh my God! What just happened?
My God.
What happened?
Oh, that's terrible. The tamping iron just exploded out the hole and launched right through Gage's skull.
Oh, man.
The iron bar must have just hit a rock and thrown a spark.
He's lying on the ground. Other workers are running over to see what happened. Oh, Ray, he's got to be dead.
I mean, he must be. It's too awful to watch. His skull is impaled on that iron tamping bar. It shot right through his left cheek, and it's sticking out through the top of his skull.
Oh, my God.
Oh, and he's bleeding pretty badly.
Wait a minute. Wait. Look. He's still moving. Oh, he's twitching like a convulsion. It's awful. But wait, he's reaching for the tamping bar in his skull. Phineas, just lie there. There's been a horrible accident.
I can't believe this. He's sitting up with the iron bar sticking out of his skull. I think he's trying to get up.
They're bringing a wagon around to get Phineas some help. Though I can't imagine anyone can help him now. I mean, if he so much as sneezes, he's a goner. Or he's going to bleed out on the way back to town for sure.
This is incredible. Phineas is mostly walking on his own. There's 2 men helping him, but Phineas is mostly under his own power. They brought him back to the lodging house.
I can't watch this. Phineas is determined to pull the bar out of his skull.
Oh, I'm going to be sick.
Oh, my God. Oh, he's still bleeding pretty badly. They've already sent for the doctor.
It's about 5 p.m. when Dr. Edward Williams pulls up to the hotel where he finds Phineas Gage sitting in a chair outside the hotel waiting for him. Dr. Williams describes the scene.
When I drove up, he said, "Doctor, here is business enough for you." I first noticed the wound upon the head before I alighted from my carriage, the pulsations of the brain being very distinct. The top of the head appeared somewhat like an inverted funnel, as if some wedge-shaped body had passed from below upward. Mr. Gage, during the time I was examining this wound, was relating the manner in which he was injured to the bystanders. I did not believe Mr. Gage's statement at that time, but thought he was deceived. Mr. Gage persisted in saying that the bar went through his head. Mr. Gage got up and vomited. The effort of vomiting pressed out about half a teacupful of the brain through the exit hole at the top of the skull, which fell upon the floor.
From what Phineas told bystanders, it sounds like he was distracted while he was tamping down the black powder for just a second and must have sparked off a rock. It's 6 o'clock when Dr. John Harlow arrives.
The 2 doctors perform surgery on Gage's skull. They shave his head around the wound and clean it out the best they can. They managed to take some of the broken pieces of skull and place them back onto his head like puzzle pieces. After bandaging his head, there's nothing more they can do. Now we wait.
No one expects Gage to survive. But as each hour passes, he defies the odds. Still, his friends get to work. They build his coffin. There's no doubt he's going to need it.
It's September 25th. For the last 12 days, Phineas Gage has been in and out of a semi-comatose state. He can speak and kind of grunt when you ask him a question, but only a word or two. He's lost a lot of blood, but he's still alive. But now, he's got another problem.
He does. Dr. Harlow observes an infected kind of fungus growing around Gage's left eye and the wound on top of his head. It's an abscess. Dr. Harlow removes the infection and applies crystalline silver nitrate to kill the infection.
It's October 7th, 24 days since the accident. Everyone in Cavendish is shocked to find Phineas Gage up and walking around under his own power. He's lost his infected eye, and he seems forgetful and frail, but it looks like he's going to survive.
On November 25th, Phineas Gage returns to his parents' home in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Throughout the coming winter, he's getting stronger physically and mentally each day. Pretty soon, he's even helping out with chores, feeding the cattle and that kind of thing. But his mother notices that her son's memory seems a little off. But, maybe a stranger wouldn't notice.
By the summer, Phineas Gage is mostly back to normal physically, though he complains that he feels strange sometimes. No pain in his head. He just feels off at times. Dr. Harlow, who knew Phineas before the accident, publishes a paper that, though Gage has recovered physically, his personality has changed. implying that damage or changes to the physical brain could alter a person's behavior. It's November of 1849, just over a year since the accident. That's when Henry Bigelow, professor of surgery at Harvard Medical School, brings Phineas Gage to Boston for a medical study. Everyone is curious as to how he survived and how he can function so well given how much of his brain was damaged in the accident.
Unable to return to work on the railroad, Phineas Gage needs to earn money, so he becomes an attraction. Gage heads to New York City, where he becomes a temporary living exhibit in P.T. Barnum's American Museum.
The guy has to earn a living somehow. He figures there's worse things to be known for than being a, quote, wonder of the world. And that brings us back to today.
In 1852, Gage moved to Chile to work as a long-distance stagecoach driver, and that life was difficult and didn't help his health that much. By 1859, Phineas Gage moved to San Francisco, where his parents lived, and he was frail and his health was failing at that point. Now prone to epileptic seizures, the convulsions happened more frequently until he died May 21st, 1860. He was 36 years old.
This case made all the newspapers in 1848. The brain was still a huge mystery back then.
It's still a huge mystery today. I mean, we've come a long way since then, but we still don't know enough about this most critical of organs.
Many medical journals wrote about the, quote, American crowbar case.
Which, of course, is a misnomer. It was never a crowbar. It was an iron tamping rod.
Well, no matter what you call it, the Phineas Gage incident got a lot of ink in medical journals. They all credited Dr. Harlow with saving Gage's life. His surgery skills and treating the infection are what saved a man who would have died otherwise.
We should point out that the story of Phineas Gage didn't end with his burial. Around November of 1867, his body was exhumed and his skull was sent to Dr. Harlow. In 1898, Dr. Harlow donated the skull and tamping iron to Harvard, where they still bring it out on display every now and then. Now, for the rest of the story, we're going to head back into the town of Cavendish. We're walking to the corner of High Street and Main Street in town. And there's the monument. Take a look, Ray.
Yeah, it's a stone monument about waist high with a plaque on it. And the plaque says it was placed here on September 13th, 1998, the 150-year anniversary of the accident. There's a timeline on there, an embossed image of a skull with a tamping rod through it, and a paragraph about Dr. Harlow. It's really a monument to Dr. Harlow if you think about it. His image is also embossed on the plaque as well.
So there's an old myth that we only use 10% of our brains.
Yes, and through impossible odds, that iron bar shot through the 90% Gage didn't need.
Right. The 10% thing isn't really true. MRI scans have shown various parts of our brain light up during different events, so it's not like 90% of our brains are extraneous. But Phineas Gage was an early medical example of how resilient this vital organ can be, that it can suffer such trauma and still we can recover to the point of living a normal life again.
A normal life that was cut pretty short. Phineas Gage died at age 36.
That's true. Still, this case posed some big questions about our personalities, our brains, and if maybe we could change a person's behavior by literally changing their mind.
I get it. Scramble the brain and maybe someone inclined to criminal behavior becomes more docile.
You know, the first lobotomy happened just about a century after this accident, so who knows what wheels were set in motion that day.
And that brings us to After the Legend, where we take a deeper dive into this week's story and sometimes get distracted.
Sometimes. After the Legend is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. This amazing group of insiders kick in just $3 per month to help with our hosting, production, marketing, and all the other costs associated with bringing you a new story each and every week. They get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. We appreciate them more than we can ever express. If you can help the cause, just head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up. And if you'd like to see some pictures of Phineas Gage, the monument, and his famous skull, just head over to our website and click on episode 272. Ray?
I think I have a book about Phineas Gage somewhere.
Yeah,
I know it's a very popular story.
Right, yeah. I mean, this guy, when you see the picture of him and holding the rod, and then you see the skull with the thing, you're just like, how could anyone survive this? Like, impossible. But then it got me thinking about the lobotomy. Working on Ghost Adventures all these years, we've done many stories of, asylums and so on.
And it was a common practice way back when.
Incredibly common, by the way. So it started in 1946 was the first time Walter Freeman launched this radical new era in treatment of mental illness. And his thought was, if I can literally scramble up the frontal lobe of your brain, maybe you'll just become more docile. And he believed it would cure mental illness. And so he took what looked like, in every way, shape, and form, an ice pick. He would go through like the eye socket. Oh. And he would scramble one side of your brain, pull it out, and then go in the other side. Like the sound effects?
Without seeing anything. Like he couldn't really see what was going on in there.
No, you just sort of feel your way, right, when you do these things. I've done a few of them, and you get the hang of it after like the sixth one.
But the wrong angle.
Yeah, right. The wrong angle.
Somebody's talking French now.
Or dead.
Or dead.
Or either way. And this was done on countless people. They could do this procedure in minutes.
Well, of course, because it wasn't a real procedure.
Right. Wheel them in. Okay. Next. Ding. Right. Like
wow.
You could do. And so some people were lobotomized that didn't want to be or probably didn't need to be. But some people gained an enormous amount of weight. It did affect their personality.
Yeah.
And so I wonder how much this case circulated the medical journals, and Dr. Freeman maybe read it one day and said, if a tamping iron bar went through his skull, maybe I could do something smaller. But man, oh man, like, I don't know, don't mess with the hardware, right?
The brain is amazing. I think it was Michael J. Fox told a story about getting brain surgery because of his Parkinson's.
Yeah, sure.
And they said, hey, you want to see something funny? Because I think he was awake during the thing, right?
I don't know.
Anyway, they're poking around, and they did something to him that made, I don't know what it is, but like his left arm just shot up in the air.
Right.
And that's because they just poked something in the brain. Or I've heard stories about people speaking different languages because they messed around with a portion of the brain.
Wow.
So look, you're right. I think we use 10% of our brain. That 90% up there is full of things
right.
that I wish, we could tap into.
Cure to cancer.
Right.
Like it's all in there.
So much. If we used 100, well, there's movies about that. The pill
right.
that accesses the 90%. And you just become like a supercomputer.
But this, obviously the brain is amazing. But this case in particular, like you've seen the plaque, you've seen the picture. When you see the artist description, it went up under the cheek, pierced the back of his eye, and then out the top of his skull. Anybody else? The things, the impossibility of that, like anyone else was dead.
Right.
Not only dead, instantly dead, like brain dead on the spot.
And that's why you become a freak show attraction.
Because
it would have killed anyone else. And here's the
yeah.
amazing man that survived.
Right.
P.T. Barnum was a smart guy. He knew what he was doing.
Well, sure. And this guy, how else is he earn a living?
Right.
He's not, and they described him as really strong, able-bodied, hard-working.
Sure.
There was one anecdote that said when he was being carried off in the cart with the tamping iron through his skull, he was yelling to one of his workers, like, you be on time tomorrow. I'll be here. Right? Like that was the kind of guy he was.
I'm sure he was in shock as well.
I'm quite sure. I hope.
But you can't work with the public after that. So what do? You can't be like a waiter.
Right.
Can't work at a bank as a teller. You just scare off the customers.
And this is one of those cases where I think it was so gripping for number one, because anyone else that he should have been dead. But number two, that he mostly recovered.
Yep.
And then that his personality changed.
Right.
Well, and we don't really know to what degree, because he wasn't really well documented before, and we're taking the word of the doctor, who got wildly famous for saving his life. And multiple sources had said, like, what a skilled surgeon this small town doctor must have been. And he was a former military doctor, so he's obviously seen some gruesome stuff. But the skill it must have taken to not kill this guy and save his life must have been enormous. Or, maybe a little bit of luck in there too.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of those cases where, there but for the grace of God go I, right?
Right.
That could have been us in some horrible accident. And if you can get your life back, yes, save me, right? But if I'm going to just be a vegetable, right? But he wasn't.
Yeah.
That description that the doctor read when he vomited a teacup chunk of brain launched out of his head and hit the floor. Oh,
How do? You just pick it up with your bare hands and kind of squeeze it back in? Put it back, quick.
That's my childhood memories. I don't even know what's in that. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine being around that. Like, I'm sorry. I'm tossing my cookies at that point.
What if it's like your bank card number or something, your debit card PIN number, and it's
the PIN
put
number.
it back. I don't remember my PIN number.
All right, I'll just put it in momentarily and then tell me.
All your passwords are gone.
Yeah.
You lose a little chunk of your brain.
Yeah, I don't think he was worried about losing PIN numbers and passwords in the 1800s, but no, you're right. You don't know what's stored where. But
Yeah.
what a profound story.
Yeah.
And so now this monument, when you read the whole thing, it's really, you think like, wow, this is about Phineas Gage, but no, it's really about Harlow because his image is embossed on there, and the timeline and the story about how heroically he performed these surgeries and how it he went on to publish papers and so on, all from this little town of Cavendish, Vermont.
Do you think, this is a weird observation, but do you think he would have been as famous if his name was like John Doe? Phineas Gage is a name to remember. You know what I mean?
You know what?
Did that help with the story, you think, and the legend?
Maybe. Decent stage
It's a very
name.
strong name. It's a stage name.
We can name a band that. We are Phineas
Gage, yeah.
And then people who know will be like, oh.
Yeah.
We'd probably have to play death metal, I assume.
I think so, yeah.
You got to play something pretty. You can't be a polka band.
Yeah, some kind of music that goes along with a thing in the head there.
Yeah. I like that. I like it a lot.
Hey, we love when you guys get involved with us. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast because it's free wherever you get your podcasts. Join our super secret New England Legends Facebook group where thousands of people share weird stories, or reach out to us anytime through our website with your own strange local legends. It takes a village to find these great legends, and we appreciate all the story leads for sure.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Nuwadi Herbals. Thank you to John Bashford for lending his voice acting talent this week. Thanks to our Patreon patrons. And our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The bizarre is closer than you think.